Hi and welcome everybody to the Ninja and the Gora. Today we've got Nigel Pivaro. Say hello, Nigel.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you very much. All right, so we're going to talk about Nigel's early career. So Nigel, you were known and loved and hated by the British public for your role in the world's longest running soap opera, Coronation Street. Most people would think that, yep, stardom, cushy number, some nice little perks. And then when you seem to be right at the top of your game, you knocked it all on the head. Why is that?
It's a great question, and sometimes ask myself the same question because especially when you're struggling with the bills and stuff like that. But it was just like I did like I loved the show, and it's not just the longest running. It was at the time, and certainly for many years. I think it still is. The most watched TV soap, certainly in Britain anyway. But so I loved the show because it was about, or it claimed to be, from rooted in Salford, which is my home city. But I didn't go to drama school, rather, and so on and so forth, and Stratford East, the Theatre Hall Stratford East, to basically play the same role day in, day out. And after about 2 or 3 years, it really got to feel like I was clocking on, and that is exactly the type of life I was trying to escape from. So, of course, it was, wonderfully paid, and, it was so, in retrospect, it was so easy in a way, blah, 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 work-wise, that, but I just had to get out and give myself, as a young actor anyway, new challenges and wanted to do new parts and different roles and the whole variety that theatre and acting gives you. So that was why I did it, really. There's one other thing as well which is important, I think. I sometimes forget to mention this, is although the work was relatively easy, there was, sometimes, you're up at the crack of dawn, doing outside location shots and stuff like this, and you might finish at 10 o'clock in the evening. But generally, it was okay. It was relatively physically easy, but mentally, it was a big strain, especially for me as a young man and a young actor, because coming into a show like that, 20 million people watching it week in, week out, the whole world, the whole of the media were on your case. And also people outside, in the general public were also very, on your case a lot, they would see you on the TV and they'd never let, you'd be walking down the street, people wouldn't let you alone and stuff like that, which in one way is really nice. And it's nice to be, and people say, how did you cope with that? I said, well, I cope with it in different ways at different times. And now I say, how did I cope with that? I say, well, if people are nice, it's nice to be nice back. But I remember at the time, actually, it did get to you a bit. It was like being in a goldfish bowl for 24 hours. You're in the show, doing the show, 8-10 hours a day. That's fine, no problem. But then you couldn't relax when you came out. Even when you were driving from the studios back home, stop at a traffic light, so be somebody look round and, oh, look, and wave, tooting the horn and all that crap, So you never felt like you had a moment to yourself. The only time you got a moment to yourself was when you were behind your door, of your home. So that was another reason why I thought, for my own sanity, I need to get out of that. It was compounded by newspapers always wanting to try and get something on you, because it was that kind of a character. It was tailor-made for the tabloids, really, Tear away Terry, and all that. You've seen the headlines, Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the answer, really.
All right. Okay. Now, so you left Coronation Street to pursue other roles.
Yeah.
So how did that go?
Well, it went brilliantly insofar as initially, insofar as I was not out of work for about 5-6 years, from doing the street in 1983 to 1990. And I was doing theatre, just endless theatre roles, both new work, new plays, by new writers, Shakespeare, commercial tours, pantomime, the whole, gamut of work that's available to actors, apart from musicals. That's the only thing I didn't do. So I did really well for 6 years. I came to a dead stop after about 6 years, and I had my first bout of unemployment, which knocked me for 6. Yeah. Just, mentally, really, because not mentally, but not a mental breakdown or anything. But the fact that I could actually be out of work, I couldn't believe it. And that lasted for about 6 months. It wasn't that there weren't offers, but the offers weren't the ones I wanted to do. Then a play came up, Taste of Funny at the Theatre Royal, and that broke that. But then again, I turned down pantomime that year, and I was out of work for another 6 months. So I then started to get into that kind of jobbing actors thing. That initial time it worked okay. It was all right actually. But then the street then kept coming back to me and asking me, would I like to go back? And I did, which probably was a little bit was probably foolish, but in many ways. But it's very hard to resist. Reviving the character is so tempting. Seeing where the character's up to, and bringing him forward and so on. So it's so tempting. And the other thing is, of course, I've got to be honest, is the money. The money's, if you've just been doing a very worthy new play for, 250 quid a week, sometimes some multiplication of that is very tempting.
and you mentioned going back to the street, but Terry's one of those characters, I don't know, sometimes he comes back and he's a great kid, and then you think, oh, he's mended his ways, but he hasn't. Do you think he ever will? Or do you think he's done for now?
Well, I always used to say, I thought I'd like it. What I'd like is, if I ever did go back now again, and finish him off this time, I'd like him to do. I think it's about time, really, kind of, bit the dust. Really, he's of an age now, and it'd be a great sort of finale. I can think of so many great finales. But the thing is I'd like him to present as somebody who is still devious and nefarious, but actually, like that Sidney Carton character, which is a far better thing that I do today than I've ever done. Right. He does that, and he changes place. Sidney Carton character in A Tale of Two Cities, and he changes places with one of the people who are about to be executed. Do you know? No, you don't read your Dickens, do you? You see, Andy, the thing. I don't think anybody reads Dickens, do they? But basically, everybody thinks this guy's a but unbeknownst to everybody, he's actually really doing the most noble thing that anybody could ever do, exchanging his life for somebody else who he feels is more worthy of living that life. Yeah. So I'd like that to be, that to be sort of something like that to be Terry's end, where everybody within the drama thinks that he's being, his old nefarious, nasty, evil self. But actually, the viewers know, but he's sacrificing himself for you, whatever, in some form or other. But I don't know if that'll ever happen, because he haven't got the same writers that we used to have years ago, you see. So that whole writer-actor relationship's changed, for good, I suppose. And the writing now is so different from when I was in it, and it was top dog,
When you finished acting, you decided to go back into education. How did you find going back into education? I was in a similar position myself. How did you find going back into education after such a long time out of it?
Well, the last time I was out of it was literally when I left Ambrose Barlow Secondary Modern School at 16. So I was. It's not like I ever went to university and dropped out or anything like that. I never went to university. I did go to RADA, obviously, but that was a different thing altogether. It wasn't academic, really. Certainly not in those days. And I didn't stop acting. I was still acting. I was still doing the street. And it was perfect because I went to Salford University. And it meant that I could go to lectures in the morning and then go and do some filming in the afternoon. It worked beautifully. It really did. So all through that period, I was still doing quite a few episodes of The Street. That was great. I was very, very confident about my subject. So that helped. The big trauma was all these screens and computers and this, that, and the other, and email. What's email? I left school at 16 in 1976, and our computer was an abacus. And kid you not, we didn't know about computers when we left school. They came in 3 or 4 years after I left. Subsequently, I had no interest in computers, never touched one, never turned one on even. So I'm horrified when I get there and they say, well, now all communications with the conveners, course conveners, must be in email, blah, blah, blah. All your essays must be written in Word and 2-3 copies and all the rest of it, and emailed to me. And I'm thinking, what the hell? So that was the trauma, and I was dragged kicking and screaming into it in that respect. The fact that as a mature student, I'd never come across computers and what have you. I have to say, my cohort of students on the Contemporary Military and International History degree, which I was on, were brilliant. They were very good like that. You know, they knew that I didn't know what I was doing. So they used to touch buttons for me in class and stuff like that, you know, and in seminars. And they were really, really nice like that, you know. And eventually I got my head around it. But that was the big difficulty. And then I went on to Aberystwyth, University of Wales, to do a master's. And so that was, by then I'd really got into it. So, you know, I went from, you know, never having done A-levels to getting an honours degree and then getting a master's degree within a 5-year period, which is great.
That's kind of leads me on because you went into journalism as well, and obviously, you know, through your time as an actor, you must have known a lot of journalists, and you know it's a cutthroat business, and they're always trying to, you know, get the dirt on somebody. So,
turn you over. Yeah,
absolutely. So, how did you know? How did you sort of, I don't know, level that with yourself?
How did I come to terms with that? Yeah, it was. It's a great question. It was a bit, you know, like poacher turns gamekeeper. Is it which way around is it? Yeah.
You went.
You know, I was the hunted, and now I became the hunter.
Yeah.
And because I felt, and I always wanted to be a journalist, and had I been, you know, more academic at school, that's probably the route I would have taken. So, you know, I did think, you know, at the time, the reason for going to university, I have to say, you should pass Salford University all the time. And there always should be this one of these signs outside. It's never too late. It's never too late. And I'd always wondered about going to university and doing a history or politics degree, and then possibly taking it into journalism. But as I say, it just hadn't. That's not the way the tea leaves had kind of, you know, floated. Yeah. So I added up all the time that in the 25 years I'd been an actor, that I spent, you know, in between jobs. And it came to a ridiculous amount of time, like 5 years. You know, when I did the 3 months here and the 6 months there. So that's why I thought I've got to find something else as well as, but what can you do when you are quite well known? You can't go and work in a bar. You know, there's nothing wrong with working in a bar. You know, and I have worked in a bar, you know, before television and all the rest of it. But once you've been on television in a high-profile program like Coronation Street, it's just impossible to go and work in a bar, you know, because you're always going to have some sort of a problem. You know what I mean? Whatever that could however that could manifest itself, it will occur. Trust me. Journalism, I thought, actually was the only job I could do.
Yeah.
And as well as being a fan, so I really threw myself into it. And as I said, I picked up all this kind of the shenanigans and the tricks and the trade by being the pursued, you know. And now I became the pursuer. And then I also got myself involved in 2 or 3 very, very hot issues in Salford, my home city, which I was basically housing market renewal and people being kicked out of their houses, specifically in the Langworthy area. And in so doing, I spoke to a chap called Neil Keeling, who was chief reporter at Manchester Evening News, you know, and also he was very, very across the housing market renewal and the regeneration projects that were being imposed on various parts of Salford and Manchester and Liverpool. And so we met, and that was a great chance meeting insofar as he then took me under his wing and he mentored me as like his cub reporter. So I worked with him with the Manchester Evening News for the next 3 to 4 months, and he taught me a lot. And I got my first front page within 3 weeks. My first splash within 3 weeks. So I was then bitten. So the whole process was like, it was almost predestined, really. You know, like so the journalism in the end, it was almost like the only way, the only route to go. You know, so 14 years on, I'm still a press card carrier and what have you. A little bit jaded, I have to say, from time to time with the business, because I came into it in a way in the wrong time. You know, it's there's less money in it. There's less pages in a newspaper now. It's a tough old game, but I'm still hanging in there.
I meant to say there, or ask you there as well about the some of the dirty tactics. When you mentioned sort of gamekeeper, sort of turned poacher hunter, go into the hunt. But you've never done any of those dirty tricks yourself, have you? I know you haven't, because I know you've got.
No. Well, the dirty tricks that to me were like going in your bins and things like that. I mean, that to me is, and approaching family members with money, things like that. Or friends with money, and and dish the dirt on such and such a body. And here's a big fat check at the end. So I've never done that. What I am is, somebody said I've heard it said that I'm like a dog with a bone. I never let go once I've got a story, and I do play hardball with people sometimes. I've kind of mellowed a little bit now, but I do play hardball and go. When people go, especially when it's what I consider, what should be considered public interest issues regarding councils or big business or business, and stories with individuals, David and Goliath stories or what have you, where that big business or government or whatever is up to something that's wrong and that should be exposed, or that there's a story there and it's a public interest story. In that case, I am totally unrelenting, and I say to people when they say, "Well, we've got nothing to say about it." Well, I'll tell you what, you've got nothing to say about it. I'm going, at 3:00, I'm going to print with what I've got, which is fairly substantial, and I will just quote you on that as saying that you've got nothing to say on it, and that we asked you for a we asked you for a statement on X, Y, Z, and you weren't prepared to give it, and I'm quite hardball like that, but I don't consider that to be underhand. It's not pleasant sometimes, but that's
not personal, is it, Nigel?
It's not personal, no.
Yeah, it's not personal attacks. I think that's fair enough. Sort of moving on to in the sort of same vein, you mentioned about newspapers dying. They've been dying for a long, long time.
Well, I would say just sorry to cut in, but
All right.
what does depress me about newspapers is that they are so celebrity led, you know, and that's, I don't want to get into a whole big thing about that because we could be here for ages. Oh, there's a bird in my cherry tree. Oh, never mind. Eating all my cherries. Sorry. Anyway, you know, I don't want to get too involved in that, but that does depress me that it's celebrity driven and what have you, and I despair of that, and I think readers are worth more than that. You know, they should be credited with having more intelligence than that, but for some reason editors seem to think that stories only sell, or newspapers only sell, if there's a celebrity involved, you know.
Yeah.
And I could give you lots of examples, and I'm not going to. And I have to hold my hand up because I like to eat from time to time, you know, that I have actually partaken in that myself. I've had to get a story on get a page lead. You know, I've had to use a celebrity's name, link a celebrity to a story, which is very depressing, but I've done it. And you have to do it, and not least, you also have to, as well as the public interest stories, you also have to go and, as a freelancer, go and, you know, do stories about people in the public eye, because those are the stories that the newspapers will go for, you know, and will pay money for. So that's the best. And I have to say, mea culpa, you know.
Yeah, I think as well, you know, if the celebrity thing, I mean, what used to wind me up more than anything was, you know, if I'd get a couple of celebrity pages to do, these people weren't talented, they weren't celebrities, they were just on TV, you know, they weren't actors, they couldn't play guitar, they couldn't act, they couldn't sing, they couldn't paint, they were just like Jade Goody, you know, and it's snowballed since then. You see things, you know, public figure. What's it? A public figure, it seems to be someone that gets him out these days, and that's it, you know.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, and that's why I hate all those celebrity Big Brother, celebrity Get Me Out of the Jungle, whatever it's called, and all these things. And I tell you where I was the other day with Sean Ryder, actually.
Oh, right.
The Montgomery, which is this little tiny Welsh town. You must get him to take you to Wales.
Yeah.
And it's got this beautiful little theatre called the Savoy Theatre. And we did a Q&A there, you know, me and Sean. You know, I go back with him back to school. You know,
Ryder used to work for the Sport, you know. He used to have a column there. And I met him a couple of times.
Oh, Sean, yeah, he did, didn't he? Yeah.
He was so funny in the jungle. Did you watch it?
I don't watch those programmes, you see, and I just caught little glimpses of him, you know, and I actually thought to myself, what the effing hell are you doing going into the jungle, Sean? You know, it's like against all credibility and all that. But, you know, fair play to him. He's had a second career out of it. You know what I mean? Both TV-wise and musically, you know, because people came to see him that never knew him in the first place.
Yeah.
Musically, that were curious, you know, and he's very honest about that. I tell you, the kid, actually, funny enough, just finishing on Sean, but one thing about him, though, I've always thought this, you know, the things that we were sort of growing up in tandem in the spotlight, and he was like, I was like, you know, he used to get constantly being shot down and ambushed by the newspaper. He was bulletproof.
Yeah.
And when we did that Q&A at Montgomery, again, he was bulletproof. He could say anything, the most stupid of things, the most un-PC, whatever you want to say, and the audience would love it because it was Sean, you know. And that's a very rare, not quality, but it's a very rare gift, that, you know, to be able to get away with, you know. But anyway, I hate all those celebrity Big Brother, celebrity Get Me Out of the Jungle, whatever it's called, and all these things, and I don't like them, and the world seems to have gone mad for that, and it's deteriorated. So celebrity has deteriorated from, you know, actual celebrity of substance, if for want of a better word, where people were actually famous for doing something,
Yeah.
to people who are just managed to get themselves on TV because they've got a perfect set of teeth, a perfect set of breasts, well-ripped muscles, whatever, you know, all that, in like The Only Way is Essex, Made in Chelsea, all these other things. And then you marry that up with Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and you've got a perfect storm. And what I've seen through the past few weeks with the lockdown, depressingly, is how certain celebrities and how particularly a certain newspaper, which I have to say I've written for, has seemed to be led by the, I mean, you know, certain celebrity gets shows off her legs in new shorts outfit as she keeps fit during lockdown.
Yeah.
You know, during lockdown exercise session, and you just think, and it's not just one; it's like endless. You know, this celebrity cooks potatoes, celebrity cuts grass, celebrity cycles. You know, in skimpy shorts. Surprise, surprise. You know, you know, and you just think this is some kind of tacit relationship now between these celebrities and certain celebrities who are playing the game, and the papers are playing the game back. And you just think this is too depressing for words, you know, when there are so many issues out there, you know.
I'm going to be a little bit frivolous here, and this is I hadn't accounted for this. Are you a United or a City fan?
Well, I'm a United fan because I'm from Salford.
Yeah.
Although I was born in the city of Manchester, actually. I was born in Harper Hay, but that was kind of an accident, really. You know, just behind Bernard Manning's club, it's called Mount View Maternity Hospital. It's been knocked down now. But I was born there. But, yeah, I'm a United fan. And I love the club and the history and what have you. But I have to say I don't take an interest now.
Yeah, who's your favourite player ever?
Ever? Oh, that's a terrible one, isn't it? Ever? Well,
okay. From all the time you were interested, if you could, who would be your sort of all-time skipper then? In that case.
Well, look, I used to love Colin Bell. Actually, I thought he was a great. He's played for City.
Yeah.
But I thought he was a great player. Yeah. But there's Dennis Law, who was fantastic. Neil Young was a great City player. Again, I always used to wish United had bought him. And Brian Kidd. What about Brian Kidd? Do you remember Brian Kidd?
Of course I do.
He was great player. And I wish he'd stayed at United longer. And I wish he'd managed United. I think he would have been the natural, successor to Ferguson. But it wasn't to be. And he's a lovely man as well. He's a lovely fellow, very, very humble. Brian Kidd. International players, over the years, I've seen so many and watched so many, as you probably have. But, sometimes you like these ones that are brilliant, but they don't quite get the recognition because they're not in glamour positions.
The nobby style.
The one I remember was a great player was Roberto Facchetti, Italian captain in the 1970 World Cup finals. He was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Almost everything you wanted in a player. I was certainly a defender anyway. But
did he play for United?
No, Facchetti never played for United. No,
I'm talking about United players, mate.
United players. No, but international would be Facchetti. No, I think United players, I have to say, probably, I mean, apart from George Best, who I saw play several times, yeah. I think, it's got to be old, what's his face, hasn't it?
Eric.
No, not Eric Cantona, who was a great player, of course. What's his name? Juventus player now. What's his name? Plays for Juventus now. Plays for Real Madrid.
Ronaldo.
Yeah, Ronaldo.
How could you forget his name?
Well, I know it's one of them mad things, isn't it? I thought he was a marvellous player, Ronaldo. And people used to say at first, oh, he's a bit of a show pony and all the rest of it. But he turned out to be so much better than that, didn't he?
Yeah.
But United have had some fantastic players over the years. Some fantastic players, great players. Nobby Stiles, my God. You see, I'm a bit older than you. You see, so I remember these people. I've seen them play. I've seen Nobby Stiles play.
Yeah, I never saw him play, but I did have dinner sitting next to him in Pacino's restaurant in Sale.
Oh, did you? Oh, well, even better.
He was brilliant, mate.
Did he nick your spuds? But he was nothing on him, was there? He was like, 10 stone soaking wet. But you can forget your Norman Hunters. I mean, he really did the business,
Terry
and So, and then there was.
I was there for Ronaldo's debut as well.
Oh, was you?
Yeah.
Who was that against?
Bolton came on for the last.
I was there against Bolton.
Yeah. I went home and said that I thought I'd seen the best player I was ever going to see, and he was, individually.
He is superb of his generation. I think he's definitely the best of his generation. And George Best was on his day was magnificent, But he only had about 4 great seasons, I reckon, But and then again, Kid, you could go on. Willie Morgan, I mean, and Bobby Charlton. Bloody hell! Yeah, this must be really interesting for you, Pfizer. Do you like football?
Yeah, a bit.
Yeah, you've had to learn to like. It, I suppose.
I've always liked Beckham.
Oh, you always like. Oh God! Well, what was it? George Best said. What was it about? George Best said about Beckham. He said. He said he can't pass. He can't dribble. He can't tackle. But apart from that, he's got a decent left foot or something like that.
George must have been drunk at the time.
No, I don't. I never rated Beckham. I always never rated him. It looks great. Well, apart from when he started to destroy himself with all those horrible, what do you call it? All them horrible tattoos. But he's done well for himself, hasn't he?
I like Beckham, I have to say, and I thought in his position at his time there was no one in the world that could touch him.
Who, Beckham?
Yeah.
No, really.
Outstanding. No, he could put that ball on the sixpence. He's brilliant. 2 corners against Bayern Munich, the Nou Camp. Both of them came from Beckham. Both resulted in goals.
And that last minute free kick against Greece, but I like a more rounded player. That's me. You see, that's my problem.
Ronaldo's the best.
Yeah, Ronaldo. Listen, Nigel, it's been great talking to you. We can wrap it up now, and I'll let you get on with whatever with going and picking your cherries or chasing the birds away from your cherries.
Chasing the birds off my cherry tree. Yeah.
It's been great talking to you again, mate. It's lovely to see you again.
Lovely to see you, yeah. So when are you back in the UK?
No idea.
Because of the lockdown, no idea. Otherwise, we were going to do New Year's in London. So let's see. If the flight.
Well, try to hook up. When you are over.
That would be fun.
Are you painting again?
Oh yeah.
Yes. I've got a massive piece on the go at the moment. Yeah.
Fantastic. Good. Andy, great to see you. Great to see you, Pfizer. Yeah. Just stay in touch, yeah.
Will do, mate. Yeah. Take care.
All the best.
Bye.
Ciao,
all the best, mate. Cheers now.
Bye-bye.